Recording to the cloud.
What's up, man?
What's up, man? So you were putting shutters up. That's
Yeah, dude. Yep.
housework. Well, dude, adulting, dude, it's fun, right? I did fucking. I don't know if I told you the privacy fence got put up.
Nah. You
Yeah,
told me you were cutting down trees for like 6 months, man.
that's how long it took me. There's still 5 roots I got to get out, but I was like, fuck it, we're paying the dude to put up the fence because I'm not trying. It took me that long to like cut down 4 trees. Imagine how long it would take me to do a fence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude. I wouldn't trust a fence you built anyway.
Yeah, that's the other side. That's also accurate. But, so you were just like ripping shit down, and just like you had to take down old shutters to put up new shutters. I know this
No.
is a riveting conversation.
So like, I don't know how. Like last year, at some point, we painted our front door, and so the fucking idiots who we bought this house from, who are pieces of shit. And if I ever see them on the fucking out in the world, I fucking hit them in the face. But anyway,
Hope they're a listener.
yeah, nah, they ain't a listener, man. They were 2 steps away from the grave anyway. So anyway, fuck them.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, so like they took our fucking like screens for like 3 of our windows. Like, why would you take the screens from the window? Anyway, so we painted our front door. So anyway, we fast forward to this last weekend. Like, we had a ton of shit going on, but we took down the shutters for our house and had them. My wife's mother-in-law and father-in-law painted them to match the front door. And then so we were putting those back up, and whenever they had the new windows, this is where I'm getting with the window issue. Like whenever they put the people who owned the house before us, they put new windows in. Well, they didn't want to pay the $20 or $40 or whatever for the installers to take this like metal framing out of the window seals. So like we took all that shit down.
Damn.
Today, which is not hard. It's not a big deal. But it's just more like clean up shit, like, you know, bullshit. Who steals screens from a window, motherfucker?
Yeah. Here's the point: is who the hell does that? What are they gonna do with them? Put them in their new house doesn't come with screens?
Dude, there was so much whack shit. They're like when they sold us the house, they were like, "Nah, man, the basement's never leaked." Blah 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 blah. Like, fast forward to like a year after we moved in, like the whole basement floods from the foundation and shit. Like, dude, it was just all this bullshit, man. Like,
well, that's right. I remember you did something in your living room. Like there was a hole.
Yeah, I had to fix that shit. Like, dude, there's just all this like shady shit that they did to get out of the house, where it's like, unless like you lived here and you saw stuff for a while, like a home inspection is not going to catch that shit. Like, you have to be here to fucking figure it out. And like, dude, there's just so much shit. Like, dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, if I ever saw them out in the world, man, they better pray to God like they catch me on a good day. Like, they fucking fought with us on the closing of this house. Like, and literally, I was like signing the closing papers on this house the day my dad died. So, like, I already wasn't like in a good mood, and they were trying to be all like, blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, I almost took them out right there. But whatever. It wasn't a pretty picture. Like, I wasn't in great shape, and I was just trying to get through the fucking day, man. So,
right. Damn. Well, yeah, we've got a leak, and oh, dude. So, cave crickets, I think is the official name. Are you familiar?
Yeah, spider crickets.
Yeah, dude. You guys have those in your basement?
Nah, man, I know what they look like. They're fucking scary as fuck.
They're terrifying, and we've had them like every year for the past 2 years. We've had them in the summer, but I swear to God, there's more. I saw a couple of them, and I was like, I'm calling in the
Terminex guy.
Terminator. Yeah, yeah, whatever. And I'm getting quotes, and I'm like, whoa, like that shit's okay. Shit's kind of expensive. And I was like, well, so I was asking them like, what are they attracted to? And they're like, wood and like dark areas and like cardboard. And I'm like, fuck. I was like, I've got literally like a wood shop in the fucking basement next to the washer and dryer where it like leaks. And so it's dark, damp wood and cardboard boxes. And I'm like, all right. So they told me to clear it out first and then we'll bring the guy in and then we'll spray so that they can get into all the nooks and crannies. So I swear to God, dude, I'm petrified that I'm going to pull like one piece of like wood out and there's going to be an arachnophobic type of fucking nest. I'm scared to death. And I know they don't bite, but they jump and they're just fucking terrifying looking. So I'm learning like, ugh. My wife's cool with bugs and shit, but I'm like, I gotta man up and do this shit, dude.
Don't you have a fucking cat?
Yeah, who kills most of them?
Yeah, like what the fuck are you doing?
But there's too many. Like to the point where like I saw one jump the other day, and I'm like, okay, they're starting to come back, and I just can't handle it again. It's too much, dude. And it's an infestation, but there's not like well, I don't know, maybe a full summer there might be hundreds, but you don't see like tons of them at once like crawling on the walls. But dude, they're everywhere. They suck. And I don't want that shit in my house.
That sounds like a good time. Sounds like a party.
Perfect for a spooky basement. Just add some jumping spiders.
Right.
I think they're like grasshoppers. I don't know.
You know what makes a spider better is jumping.
Yeah, right.
If you want to increase the horror factor of any spider,
let it jump.
give it some hops.
Give it grasshopper legs. That's right. Yeah. And they don't even jump that high. Oh, anyway. Fucking that was you got to complain about something, so I figured I would too.
All right.
So all right, man. Well, shit. Bitch about house stuff again. At least I can see the light at the end of the tunnel of the quarantine. Hopefully we get out of the Zoom situation sooner than later. I think the last 2 episodes we said, well, probably next week, or no, maybe not, because it was your wife's birthday. And so in theory we talked about this week, but whatever. Here we are again.
Dude, like, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I think, like, this weekend, like, I went right back to week 1 of the fucking quarantine in my brain. Like, I literally, like, full scale, like, panic attack, like, the whole 9. Like, it was not, it was like a rough ass week leading up to it. And then, like, dude, I just, like, we were on the road and, like, everything that we were doing to get down to the lake house was going wrong. And literally after like 20 minutes or 30 minutes of us being on the road and hadn't even made it like 10 miles, I was like literally like about to lose my shit.
Wow.
And yeah, I've basically decided that I'm borderline agoraphobic from this whole situation. Like, I fucking hated people beforehand, and now you put fucking stupid people all over the place, and they're in my face, and dude, I'm just like, I don't want to leave the fucking house ever. Like, I'm good.
Well, okay, but you can come to the basement. Like, literally, it's 9 minutes or whatever it is, and then you'll like sneak in. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, I'll hide the wife and the kid.
It's like 2 minutes to your place. That's not even it, man. It was just like it was just like the weirdest that, like, it was the weirdest thing. Like, you could put anything in front of me and I'll be all right. Right. You know, for some reason, like, viruses and shit, that's like my fucking kryptonite. Like, yeah, dude, full trigger.
Well, and you, dude, to be fair, I never experienced what the length of solitude, well, I guess technically solitude with the family, like, or, you know what I mean, like, I haven't been quarantined for any long stretch of time, so I never got to the point where I'm like, oh shit, going out is like, whoa, sketchy. But I hear people all the time, especially the older folks, they come into the store and they're all masked up, and I'm like, yeah, good, you fucking should be. If you're not wearing a mask, go the fuck back home. But like, they're literally, you can see them like trying to figure out how to do it again, like how to function in society. And I'm like, God damn, it wasn't that long, but it's like that fear factor. You know what I'm saying?
Well, dude, I've been in the house. Dude, I've been locked up like 11 weeks,
Yeah, damn.
2.5 months. I've been in quarantine, bro.
Yeah.
Um, and like, not to like put too fine a point on it, but like a friend of mine, like, and this isn't like one of those friend of mine stories that you tell where it's like a guy I heard of once from, you know, blah 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 blah. Like, no, I was invited to this wedding, like, so I know these people very well. Like, her uncle just woke up from a 7-week coma from this shit, and I'm like, all right, man, like, you know, and then you hear like people like all the time like, oh, it's bullshit. It's like the flu. I'm like, and if you actually do some research, like the United States is actually like, we're kind of the epicenter right now, but like we're trending at like 10 to 12% mortality rate. Like, go fuck yourself. They were talking about 2% mortality rate at the beginning of this thing,
Right.
and we're pushing like 10 to almost 20%. Like in some areas it's 20%. Other countries, they're pushing 20% mortality rates. I'm like, you take 20% of the world population and drop it, find out what the fuck's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's intense. Yeah, dude, you know, it's weird because it's like I had to go back to my job, otherwise I didn't have that job. So like I'm grateful that I'm able to work, but part of me it's actually forgotten like, oh shit, there's still the majority of people aren't out, and so it's hard. I have to check myself every once in a while and be like, okay, shit's not normal. Like, make
Yeah.
sure that you remember that. Hey, be careful. You know what I mean? So, and I think too many people are just going out and saying, oh well, we're free, you know, and it's like, no, motherfuckers, like slow
Yeah.
down. Like,
So that's like my little rage tangent or whatever. Like, you know,
no,
we do it every episode. Like, here's my little vent of the Covey, my Covey vent.
Covey vent. That's right.
And then
Well, hey, if you want to hear more of our Kobe events, hit us up on social media.
there's only been 22 episodes of Covey vents, by the way.
I think it is number. I think this is quarantine episode 17, maybe ish.
Yeah.
19. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's been a long time. But anyway, so hey, my segue was killer, and you just fucking cruised right past it.
Yeah.
God damn it! Hit us up on Instagram or Facebook at
Based on True Events Podcast.
Yeah, we on the Twitter at
Podcast Bote, BOTE.
That's right. You can find us on YouTube.
Based on True Events Podcast, Bote.
Or just search for Based on True Events Podcast. I don't think anybody remembers like colon boat.
Yeah,
like they just fucking
like
search.
colon /
They're fucking just searching.
It's got to be word for word.
You have to type out colon.
Yeah. Mildred, was there an underscore? Are any of these words capitalized?
Yeah, we still got I Wrote for Boat going on.
Yeah.
Send us your suggestions. We'll pick our favorite and send you a free shirt.
Then we got vote on your suggestions.
Yeah, technically, I don't know if we're going to say the voting's over, but this is tonight's episode is the most voted. So we're going to, I guess, get through these 4 and then we'll post another 4 suggestions. So keep them coming because we do love that shit. And Eric said it best. Well, I'll let you say the motto. It's our new mantra or motto, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, we're over 8,000 downloads. We're, a couple hundred followers, whatever. You know, you guys got us here. We're closing in on a year, man. You guys come back and listen and support us and share us and send us to other people. So we want it to be as much your podcast as it is ours. So we're going to put those suggestions that people put out there, and we're going to let you guys pick what you want to listen to. What do you want to hear us bitch about for an hour?
For an hour. That's right. Yeah, keep that shit coming. We love it. Let's see, what else? I guess that's pretty much it for the plugs, man. Shit, am I missing anything?
Field trip episode, TBD.
Yeah,
still on the books.
Just FYI, they started Waverly tours again, so I got to hit my friend up and see if we can get on the books. Although I'm not gonna be able to go until your ass is allowed out of the house. So fucking
A, man.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, there's like really nothing like. I mean, I'm not going back to work anytime soon. I don't think. Like, I mean, that's to be determined. Like, my wife's work was like last week or something. Was like, all right, man. The minute daycare opens up, your ass is coming back to work.
Oh, for her work?
Yeah. She's like, all right, like I work in a cube. They're like, all right, wear a mask all the time. Break rooms are closed. One person in the bathroom at a time. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? All right, but whatever.
Part two,
But,
Kobe rant. Kobe rant.
but anyway, technically, I mean, I can leave you. Like, I can walk out. I can go out of the house.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, so eventually we'll do that though. And then shit, man. I think that's it. Plug. So fucking.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, I'm up. I'm gonna. You guys had 4 topics to vote from, and your number one voted pick is what I'm doing this evening, which I think the actual title was Russian Mad Scientists. Is that right?
Yeah.
So before I get into this, because I mean, I had looked at this for a while because I saw we've had the 4 topics, so I kind of looked at all 4 of them a little bit, so I had an idea of what I wanted to do and what direction. But truthfully, and I asked you today, were they specific about a certain scientist? Because I don't remember who suggested it, so I didn't off the top of my head know any famous Russian mad scientists. Is there one that you are aware of before I jump into this that maybe?
I mean, so like when you asked me that question, I think my answer was that, I think this is really Russian mad scientist is really kind of more of the feel of the episode than,
right.
Hey, I want you to talk about X, Y, and Z. Like, I know that, like, personally from, I guess, gearing up to before World War II until well into the Cold War, they had some pretty wild live shit going on in some Russian laboratories, which the Russian sleep experiment is kind of like, it's not based on that, but that's why people believe in the Russian sleep experiment, is because the Russians did some wild shit. So
exactly. And I'm gonna cover some of that, but the Russian sleep experiment, that's why I was, like I said on that little mini episode, hook, line, and sinker, dude. And that's why I was kind of pissed when you said it's bullshit, but at the same time I was relieved. But I mean, I was like, because I was like, I can believe this happened. But now that I think about it, dude, the attention to the details, because I went back and listened to that episode again, at least up to the part where you said it was bullshit.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was really out there.
Yeah. No, like I think even we won't talk about that. Well, I'll let you get into the episode, but I think that was where I started calling bullshit on the Russian sleep experiment. Is I was like, okay, I may not be a doctor, but I know that you're not going to make it too long with X, Y, and Z as an issue. Like you're not going to be like, hey, I don't give a fuck what is going on. Like, so the rational, like, logic side of my brain started kicking in about halfway through that story. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, wait a second. Yeah, well, I don't know. That didn't work for me the first time I heard it. But anyway, you're right. We can sit there and talk about that forever. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen. It's good as hell, although you know the ending.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's a fun ride either way. It's a fun ride either way. I watch movies over,
Yeah, it was a fun ride. So I still don't know exactly how I wanted to lay this out. So basically, I've got a few different. There wasn't one particular Russian experiment or one doctor or scientist that I wanted to spend an entire episode talking about. So I figured the best way for me to do it is just find some of the ones that stuck out with me that it's pretty fucked up. I'm not gonna lie, like it's.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna I'm gonna kind of, I guess, just throw them out at you, and we'll do what we normally do and discuss, and probably hear lots of fucking really inappropriate comments along the way. So the first one that caught my attention was the definitive blood transfusion from a corpse. Like, okay, interesting. And this is from bbvaopenmind.com. I want to give some props to these people so we don't get sued again. Another somewhat unorthodox piece of biological research done in Russia after the revolution was to use blood from dead bodies for transfusions. It should be first noted that Russia in the 1920s was at the forefront of research on human blood transfusions, and the first blood banks in the world were set up at that time in Moscow and Leningrad. Specifically, one scientist, Alexander Bogdanov, had the idea of using blood transfusions in the fight against aging. Okay, so, all right. And who better to use as a guinea pig than himself? I feel like I had actually heard about this one before. But the first 11 transfusions appear to have been successful. His friends found him rejuvenated. But he finally died after giving himself a transfusion with blood from a student suffering from tuberculosis, among other diseases. You think he would have done like some screening or?
He's like, I'm immortal.
Yeah, right. Wrong test, motherfucker. Some say this was not the failure of a mad scientist, but that he took his own life due to problems with the Soviets in the 1930s. Another scientist, Sergei Yudin, devised a series of methods to conserve and store the blood of dead people and use it for transfusions into living people. Like many other scientists, Yudin had problems with the revolution and was stripped of his responsibilities and sent to the concentration camps. He was finally rehabilitated after the death of Stalin, although he died very soon after. Some documents by the Nobel Prize winner Hermann J. Mueller that mention his attempts to use blood of corpses for transfusions have recently been unearthed in the University of Indiana. I was like, fucking hell, Indiana, dude. Yeah. We've done so many stories where something fucking ridiculous has happened in Indiana.
People in Indiana are just like, oh yeah, it's right over here.
Oh, the Russians, it sounds great. After attending several U.S. universities, the American geneticist and activist immigrated to Germany, but left for Russia after the rise of the Nazis. Once there, he became part of the anti-Lysenko movement and, seeking himself in a danger, fled to the Spanish Civil War, where he joined the international blah, blah, blah. All right, so two questions. Do you think it's morally right to transfusions from corpses? Does that bother you in any?
We take organs from corpses.
Yeah, see, it didn't bother me at all either. Like this was on a bunch. This was actually on a bunch of the sites, and I was like, meh.
I personally don't think it's a viable option.
No, I mean, right.
I mean, you'd have to get it quick, I would imagine. I mean, I guess if you're getting it fast, then who gives a shit? Like, it's pouring out on the floor, but if you could use it, then why not? Like,
yeah, I mean, see that one didn't bother me, and that's why I started with that one. That was on a lot of websites. There's like a ton of sites, and the way that I found most of these were laid out was like the most twisted scientific Russian, whatever projects in history, and like so they like do number 1, 2, 3, 4. One of them is Stalin and his mad scientist, like Stalin's favorite science experiments. I was like, okay. So, but this one was on a lot of them, and I didn't have an issue necessarily with taking the blood from corpses. I guess as long as that's not what killed them.
Yeah, right. But no, I mean, if that's a viable option, like, I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't drain somebody dry.
Yeah, if you're dead.
On the table, like, I mean, we're in a national blood shortage as it is. I feel like every time the Red Cross shows up, they're like, ain't nobody got blood. I'm like, all right, motherfucker. Like, but I mean, I'd never heard of this, but like, I feel like that's a good option. Like, so.
Yeah, I would say that the mad scientist in that little spiel was the dude who didn't test the dude for tuberculosis before injecting himself.
Yeah, like, I mean, I feel like you can't just be pumping yourself full of like weirdo blood, but you know.
Hey, nice to meet you. You good? Yeah, all right. Good for me. That works.
Well, I mean, we have some pretty substantial medical records these days. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see what. And I figure like it's not like they're gonna take a gallon out of you and then immediately hook it up to somebody. I imagine these days they'd probably fucking test it pretty heavily.
You would think so.
So you would hope so. For Christ's sake.
Right.
But I mean, I don't personally have any problem with it.
All right. Yeah. So first up, that was the one that I was like, yeah, I don't know, but it kept coming up, so I figured I'd share it. And I needed to make 45 minutes, so that was my space filler. Just joking, kind of. All right, hey, how do you pronounce Ilya? Ilya?
Ilya, yeah.
You seem good with the maybe okay. Ivanovich, Ivanov.
Look, I got like this much experience with Cyrillic or whatever their language is. Like, dude, I can't read that shit. Like the backwards R's and the fucking number letters. Like, I can't read any of it. But I actually have a fairly decent ear for the language. I just can't
read it.
I can't fucking read any of it.
I can't read it or pronounce it. So you're ahead of me. Anyway, this dude was a Soviet biologist who worked on cross-species breeding in the early 20th century.
This is the one I've heard of.
Yeah. He was controversially linked to attempts to create a human-ape hybrid known as humanzees. Chimpanzees and humanzees. Clever name. But in the 1920s, Ivanov carried out a series of experiments that involved artificially inseminating female chimpanzees with human sperm. And there's a photograph of this beefcakey like chimpanzee. It is weird, dude. Anyway, let me get through this. He failed to achieve his goal, but he wasn't put off. So he did this with like tons of chimpanzees. I read it. One article was super detailed, and I was like, It's sad, actually. But in 1929, he organized experiments to inseminate female humans with ape sperm. Let's switch it around a little bit. But the death of his last orangutan caused a delay. So he, and I don't remember exactly time frame wise, but at some point he put out, or he and his cohorts, whatever, put out like an ad looking for volunteers.
Yeah, but dude, in Russia, you volunteer.
Right. Well, he said that he got like 5.
Hard quotations.
Right.
Volunteer.
They said he got 5 out of like, whatever, but.
He was given 5. He was given 5. Yeah. And he told they were volunteers. But okay.
Yeah. Shortly after the Soviet government decided to exile him from the Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic, where he died just 2 years later from a stroke. So there's a couple of articles that again went into some detail and stuff. Like, I don't know what would be that different if you had like a monkey human. Like, they'd be taller. Like, because we were monkeys. I mean, essentially we've, evolution. And I know people are, evolution. But, I mean, would they walk more upright, like better posture? I mean, it's not like they're going to start speaking fucking, Russian or.
I mean, I think the argument for this is always like, so if you take a tiger and a lion, you cross them, you get a liger, right?
Which is like it's a big tiger.
It's a big fucking animal, but a liger can't have any progeny, right? And there was just like a zebra that had sex with something and it made like a zonkey or something. I think it had sex with a donkey and they had a zonkey or some shit. Like there's all this like weird shit that like animals crossbreed all the time. Like that's not really the issue. I think that the reason that this was embarked upon, well, this crazy fuck was like, I can do it.
I can do it.
I can fucking do it. Like, but B, I think that like they did this shit because it's like, all right, man. So when it comes to war, like especially like in Russia, like World War One, World War Two, gearing up for, you know, the Cold War. Like, dude, if you're not wasting people and bullets, then that's the best way to preserve your resources. Like,
Right.
and if you don't give a shit because you're making monkey people, like, I think that that's kind of the point. And if you end up getting like, I would assume that the original intention was super soldier,
Super
like
soldier.
the brain of a man, but the strength of a, you know, a chimpanzee, you know,
Right.
what the fuck ever. Like, oh, we got these giant monkey dudes. And this is where Bigfoot came from. I mean, I don't know if you know that. Like, this is how we
Bigfoot
have
definitely.
Sasquatch here in the United States. The Russians dropped them off in Washington and Washington State, and then now they're just free flowing throughout the.
So actually, this is part 2 of our Bigfoot episode. Actually, Bigfoot originated. He was a humanzee.
Yeah, he was a humanzee. So just in case anybody didn't know.
And you know, all of the sending monkeys and animals to space, like I steered clear of that one because I feel like that's the one that everyone does know happened. You know, and I imagine this was part of that, was to give a chimpanzee the, you know, the capabilities of thinking like a human and functionality so that they could man aircrafts and shit like that. So
yeah,
I mean, I think you agree it was 100% to create a weapon of sorts.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100. It wasn't in the name of science.
Right. What the fuck? Well, that's what I'm like. That's my first question. Like, what was he trying to make it look like? I mean,
Well,
like a tall monkey?
I feel like you don't go into that kind of situation with a look, like an intentional look. Like, you're going into that with results. Like, that's the end all result is the point of the.
They probably wanted it to look as scary and fucked up as possible. They're like, yeah, that's even fucking more frightening. Perfect. You know?
Exactly. You nailed it.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Speaking of wild things, the number 2 on this list, and this is from the sun.co.uk, 2-headed monster dogs.
Yeah, I've heard about this one too.
Soviet scientist Vladimir Demikhov was an early organ transplant pioneer, but he's also infamous for twisted experiments on poor pups. And be forewarned, if you Google any of this stuff, there's some pretty sad shit. You know me and dogs, man. So I saw this and I'm like, ugh. This was like 1959. The controversial Soviet boffin. I should have Googled what that is, but BOFFIN. They refer to that a lot. Are you? What it?
Professor, I believe.
Professor,
I could be. I'm completely guessing.
Yeah.
But
well, that would actually make sense in every sentence that I read it. So. Anyway, performed sicko surgeries that involve transplanting a dog's head onto another hound to create 2-headed dogs. Demikhov created at least 20 of the creatures in communist East Germany during the Cold War. Most of the dogs died after just a few days, but one of them lived for nearly a month. One double-headed dog. Are you Googling it right now to see these horrific two-headed dog fucking images?
A boffin is a person engaged in scientific or technical research.
No,
by the way.
It just sounds like something could be like, yeah, what a boffin.
What a boffin.
You boffin. So one of those dogs, double-headed dogs, lived for nearly a month. One double-headed dog was even pictured drinking water and walking around. But while the smaller dog could lap up liquid, she wasn't connected to the main stomach, so water simply flowed out from the tube onto the floor.
Cool.
Fucking horrible. Due to a lack of immunosuppressive drugs, the host dog's immune system eventually rejected the transplant, causing death. So as I was, and I'll give myself away. I was going to try to start this whole episode. After reading this, I'm like, oh. And I was going to give the whole synopsis of the fucking human centipede. But I was like, I don't think I could do it, A, without laughing, but 2, I think you would immediately get it. And just similar to the Harry Henderson, like, fucking attempt, it would have been, like, screwed. So I stayed clear. But, yeah, there's, like, an image of what this guy attempted to do. And I'm like, so why you didn't connect his stomach? How would it survive? Like you sucked at this. Like for
Right.
real. Like 20 times you'd think you would have had some sort of knowledge of how the body and the gastric everything worked, but clearly not. So to me, this one is more of the mad scientist feel, like experiment, like sewing the head of a dog onto another dog. And there's some more animal stuff, but this one actually bothered me a little bit more than the rest so far.
So let me stop you here. Like, okay, so you've done 3, right? You did the blood from corpses. You did the monkey fucker, the monkey fucker, and then the dog guy, right?
They didn't fuck monkeys, by the way. I hope they didn't fucking.
Dude, come on. You know there was some monkey fucking going on.
I didn't want to say it, yeah.
But all right, so besides the monkey fucking,
right.
I see actual value in the scientific research that was going on. I'm not saying that I agree with the methods in which they went by it, or even discussing whether or not there's sound scientists and scientific methods going.
The monkey or the two-headed dog?
Like the two-headed dog and the blood transfusion thing. Like, because if you really think about it, like the blood transfusion, they even said at the beginning of this, like, Russia was at the forefront of the blood transfusion game. Like, they're kind of like figuring some shit out that we use today. And right. I don't necessarily have a problem with that first one.
No, now, I don't.
When it comes to the two-headed dog thing, like, I don't love. All right, we do fucking animal research today, like in the States, like before anything comes into a human's hands. We fucked with bunnies and rats and monkeys and everything, to make sure it's safe. Right. But the idea of like this dude like transplanting heads of an animal onto another animal, the fact that it survived the operating table is actually pretty astounding. He's not worried about whether or not he's hooking this stuff up to the stomach or whatever, but as long as it's got a good blood flow, like, and it's getting fresh blood to the brain, and like it doesn't need to eat, it's getting its nutrition and its sustenance from the host body. So like I actually kind of feel like this guy as a predecessor for transplant research is actually pretty high on the list of importance.
Why are you giving it another head?
Dude, think about it. Like, think about it this way. Like, if you're on a battlefield and a dude gets blown the fuck up and his body's fucked, his organs and chest and everything are fucked, if you can lop off the head and attach it to somebody else on the battlefield and get him home and keep the brain preserved and eventually put him on another body, like a donor body, like that's the fucking gold medal of fucking transplants right there.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't ever even think of that. I'm just literally, that's why we're different. I'm just going, oh, poor puppies. And you're like, fucking, it's genius.
Well, it's like, I mean, it's kind of Frankenstein-y, but like, I mean,
Frankenstein-y.
But I mean, if you look at it, like, dude, the fact that he made it past the operating table is fucking insane.
It is. Actually, so hold that thought, because this next one, and I skipped one because this one is right along the lines of what we're talking about. Talk about Frankenstein-y, reviving dead dogs with machines.
Yeah.
Soviet scientists are also believed to have investigated how to revive clinically dead organisms. A documentary called Experiments in the Revival of Organisms was created in 1940, which showcased some of its research. I don't really want to watch that. And I like documentaries. Soviet boffs, there's another one, these boffs. Sergei and Boris performed a range of twisted tests on animals in the film. They started by removing a heart from a dog's body and then connecting it to apparatus, including a lung and a tray, operated by bellows that oxygenated the blood. This allows the heart to keep pumping outside of the body. Another experiment involved killing a dog by draining all of its blood. After 10 minutes, the dog was connected. I said the dong. Sorry. The dong was connected to After 10 minutes, the dog was connected to a heart-lung machine, gradually returning blood into the animal's circulation. This seemingly allowed the dog to return to life, a process that was reportedly repeated on several animals. But skeptics of the footage say that the animals involved only survived for a few minutes. That's Frankenstein-y.
Is that it?
Well, yeah, like the film, and there's a picture of a dog head connected to like this robot weird arm thing. It's fucking horrible. But so the whole argument there is the skeptics say that they only lasted for, what did
10
they say?
minutes. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that.
Well, their claim was saying that we got it to last 10 minutes. And it's like, well, it's not really a success, dude. But the mad scientist part of here was, again, the cruelty to animals aspect and why are they torturing this one, since what you just said, I go, okay.
There's a means to an end, man. There's like, all right, so Russia, dude, there a lot of the stuff that I feel like this episode kind of ties in really well with our CIA episode. Because it's kind of like both sides of the coin, and like if from the CIA episode, like that episode, the CIA had their hands in a lot of weird shit, and
yeah,
one of our listeners sent me a suggestion to pick up a book, and I bought the book this week. It's called Chaos, and it's called Chaos, and it's about Charles Manson, as the CIA and the secrets of the 60s or whatever. The book's called Chaos or whatever. But I'm going to check it out. And it's basically like the guy was on Joe Rogan. But the idea behind this is like, if you look at a lot of these like major nations like the United States and Russia and, we pour a lot of money into the military industry.
Yeah.
And the military industry, like as much as people want to shit on it, like we get a lot of the perks and creature comforts of today from shit that gets invented from building a military. Like, so keeping that soldier alive on the battlefield by taking his head off and attaching it to another guy or a machine, like I can see the value in that because I understand what they're doing. It's like, okay, we got a whole lot of dead bodies that might have gotten shot in the head. If we can just swap out heads, whatever, X, Y, and Z. Like, oh, if we figure out, hey, you ran out of blood, like, oh, how long? What's our window? Like, how much time do we have before we can light you back up? What's the real wall in the death world, like flatliners shit, like right. But I mean, I've heard of stories where like in these are kind of like urban legendy stories, but like in hospitals in the States or in England or wherever you fucking want to go, but like some intern or some guy doesn't really know what he's doing, has been working on a guy on the table and their heart's been stopped for a certain period of time and they get the body back to life. Well, the brain's dead.
Yeah.
Like it hasn't had enough oxygenated blood going to it. So the brain's dead, but the body's still functioning.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well now we have to re-kill the guy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he's already been dead. Like, but I actually kind of like the idea of like the experiment on the animals to like, I'm not saying any of it's true because a lot of this I would assume is propaganda. Like we're bringing dogs back to life and shit like that. Like, right. But like the breathing with billows and stuff and keeping a heart alive, like, and maybe even the animal shit with the monkey fucker. Like maybe that's like an organ farm. Like there are people today who who are on waiting lists for kidneys and livers and hearts and shit like that. Yeah. You get a fucking fucking chimpanzee liver and it'll work, then
I'll take it.
Fucking A, man. So I can see that this like started as how do we preserve our like a soldier.
Right.
Like, how do we get a super soldier? How do we do this? How do we do that? And like, I can see the thought process behind it. I'm not saying I justify any of what was done.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, the transplant and transfusion shit, like, that's some forerunner shit. Like,
well, so I agree. It was ahead of its time. And so those don't particularly, like, yeah, it's the pictures of the dog. And I get that's why those two with the dogs especially hit every single list, because, oh, the cruel Russians are torturing these animals. I'm a big, and I know you're not condoning animal abuse in any sense, but I'm a big softie when it comes to that. But I totally understood why those tests existed. It's, you got to do some pretty wild shit in order to make steps, and you can't really do that on human subjects.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, dogs are really cute, and we know them as pets. It's the same thing. People going crazy over, like, China and Korea and whatever, eating dog meat. And it's like, well, dude, up in the mountains, what other fucking protein? What else are they going to eat? There's nothing else there. Just because we have pets and we've domesticated them, So those didn't bother me so much. They weren't too mad science. I mean, the Frankenstein dog thing is, I guess, technically pretty wild, but
yeah,
I don't think mad is in crazy.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, there's some fucking crazy experiments, but they're trying to push science, man. They're pushing some shit. But again, I think a lot of this is propaganda also. Like, scare the fucking Americans of the crazy Russians, and the other side of that is, like, Russians, like, look how far we've gotten with our science.
Well, by the way, so I almost took the word Russia out of this episode, because there is shit's every country has some crazy mad scientist shit.
Yeah.
This just happened to be the one that was suggested, so I decided to try to stick along that. So one more about dogs, unfortunately. Mass slaughter of dogs to test nerve agent. Yay. Russian scientists are believed to have killed and tortured thousands of dogs in horrific experiments. The goal, to hone the nerve toxin that poisoned former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in the recent Salisbury attack. Animals were forced to wear gas masks and walk on a treadmill until they died from exposure to the powerful Novichok nerve agent. The sick torture test took place at a chemical research institute, which was abandoned by the Red Army in 1992. It's not that long ago. The compound was built by the Soviets in Uzbekistan to manufacture Novichok. U.S. expert Judith Miller, who visited the compound after it had been shut down, told of her terror. I saw hundreds of small cages where dogs were held on 25 miniature treadmills. The dogs were strapped to them and crammed into gas masks. Thousands died from exposure to the agent. I mean, it's a horrific image, but I can tell that the people writing this are very much one-sided. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a picture of a poor German Shepherd with a gas mask on the treadmill. Like, that's a horrible image.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible story, but it would have been much more of a horrible story if it had been humans.
Right.
Or children. Yes. Like, let's see how long it takes to kill a human. Like, let's see how long it takes to kill a kid.
Well, funny you say that, because one of the other ones I was going to talk about was Poison Laboratory of the Soviet Secret Services. The Soviet Secret Services opened up its first poison laboratory, and they use quotations, in 1921 under the name Special Office. Special Office. And was used to test various deadly poisons. In 1939, it was renamed Laboratory 1. Not a very clever name. Special Office to call it Laboratory 1.
Nobody go to 1. Nobody go to 1.
And it came under the command of Grigory Marianovsky, a Soviet biochemist and poison developer. Myranovsky and his colleagues tested deadly poisons on human prisoners from the gulags, so-called enemies of the people. These included mustard gas, ricin, R-I-C-I-N.
Ricin.
Yeah. digitoxin, cure air, and cyanide, all in a bid to find a tasteless, odorless chemical that couldn't be detected after death. These poisons were given to the victims with a meal or a drink as medication. They use a lot of quotations in this one. Eventually, they developed C2K2, which caused victims to become calm and silent and then eventually to die within 15 minutes. Marianovsky tested his poisons on people of different conditions and ages to understand the chemicals better. He was eventually arrested as part of a political campaign by Joseph Stalin. The lab lived on in various forms throughout the Cold War, however, and was reportedly reactivated in the late 90s for the creation of biological and toxin weapons for the clandestine operations in the West. That's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, it says...
It's not surprising at all.
No. It said human prisoners. I mean, you know, they're still humans. So it is way worse, in my opinion, than anything I've read so far.
Yeah. Well, like the Gulag, man, like, dude, Stalin put a fucking shitload of it. Stalin killed more of his people than, like, I think any fucking leader on the planet. Like, he put so many in fucking the Gulag and shit. And I'm not 100% on this. I think he let his own kid get sent to the Gulag. Like, his own son went to the Gulag, and he didn't fucking get him out. Like, he was like, nah, fuck you.
Wow.
Like he was so scared of people, like, informing on Russia to anyone that was against them, that, like, he didn't give a fuck. So it does not surprise me at all that they would test this shit. Like, fuck it, man. He probably liked dogs. He fucking hated these people in the Gulag, man. I'm surprised there's not more stories of... I'm surprised that they actually had scientists and boffins, or whatever you fucking want to call them.
Yeah.
That fucking, you know, were still working on dogs. That weren't just fucking with people, man.
I know. Yeah, I mean, dude, so when I started getting into this, I it's sad to say that I had hoped, but I didn't. I don't. That's not true. I thought for sure, like, it was going to be much more like Frankenstein's army type shit, you know?
Yeah.
To my surprise, the Russian, out of multiple sites and lists of things, these were the top ones. I didn't find... There was some horrible stuff with children, you know. I skipped those. Dude, you want to talk about fucking horrible experiments? Like, we should have said German. You know, like,
Oh, dude.
I couldn't tell you how many times, like, a list wasn't just Russian specific, and, like, top 10, it was like 9 of them had to do with concentration camps, and it was like, and then a puppy, you know, two-headed puppy, and it's like,
yeah.
So technically Russian mad scientist has this huge kind of whatever about it, but I didn't find anything like too freaky, you know, like really like putting arms and turning it into weapons and like crazy weird shit and three-headed humans and shit. Now there is a famous like Dasha and Masha, they're just twins. Was it conjoined?
Yeah, conjoined twins.
Conjoined twins that they literally stole from their mom and then told the mom that they had died to do like basically to poke and prod them, and like I was like, oh, so there's some horrible stuff like that. But as far as an actual experiment being done like these, there wasn't anything really too scientific or sci-fi like horror, you know, esque.
Yeah.
Which I guess I'm glad, but you know, I expected to be like, holy shit, you know what I mean? Right. And this guy Lysenko kept coming up. He's on Stalin's favorite. By the way, Stalin's top 5 like favorite experiments were all like the human poison one, the monkey fucker.
Yeah.
The Lysenko. One of the ones that kept coming up was a guy who, I don't remember his name, but basically he was responsible for like the starvation of 7 million people. He was in charge of the agriculture and purposely like did it wrong to where like all the food died, like everything that they were growing like just was worthless and killed like 7 million people. I was like, geez. So I didn't go that route because it was really fucking sad. Like, but yeah, so I don't know, essentially I didn't find anything too crazy. It was more just things, and you kind of nailed it on the head, and you even made me realize it more. Pretty advanced shit. You know what I mean? I mean, people are sensitive, and especially, you hear, oh, Russian. Oh yeah, it's got to be, whatever. And Russia's done some fucked up shit. Everywhere has. But I hope this episode is really disappointing. But
well, no, I looking at it through the lens of pushing science, like, and until you started taking blood out of person A and putting it into person B, we didn't know how to do any of that shit. Like, we didn't know if that was even possible. Like, you got to start somewhere with some of this shit. Like, for the record, the first successful heart transplant on record was on December 3rd, 1967. But this Russian dude's attaching dog heads and keeping them alive in the 30s. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's something to be said for, like, obviously the dogs didn't live, but he was just kind of proving the theory that you could do that shit.
Right.
So I don't know, man. I'm hard pressed to, like, I don't look at it through the lens of horror as much. Like, they did some horrible shit. I'm not saying that they didn't.
Right.
But fuck, cosmetics companies do some horrible shit to animals every fucking day. Like right now, it's like scrambling for a fucking vaccine for the fucking COVID virus. You think that there aren't some animals really in the fucking suck tank right now? Yeah, man. There's a shit ton of fucking lab rats getting it handed to them every fucking day. Like, and just because we deem one animal fucking protected and another animal is, like, you talking about the fucking the shitty ass fucking spider crickets in your fucking house. Like,
fuck those animals.
They're fucking creepy as fuck, but that's the reason that you don't have a problem wiping them off the planet. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all opinion based, man. It's perspective based. If those fucking insects were killing the fuck out of malaria mosquitoes that were attempting to kill your family, you'd look at the spider a lot different. You know what I'm saying? So
that's very, very true. But I'm telling you, as of right now, if one jumps on this fucking armchair, I'm out, dude. Yeah. What is it?
And I'm not saying any of it's right. I'm not saying any of it's wrong. I'm just saying, like, I know that this is clickbait a lot of times because people say, oh, it's Russian. And like you were saying, like, oh, it's Russian and it's animals and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, man, they're doing the same shit our fucking scientists are. They're just doing it in a different way.
And then they were doing it, it looks like, way earlier. And if it's propaganda, that's one thing. But if not, man, they're pushing some scientific boundaries fairly successfully at a very early age in that world. Yeah. Well, so it wasn't like these actually happened. You know what I'm saying? Like these experiments were valid. So, but the funny thing is they're, one, I'm not on a Russian website because I can't read it, but so everything clearly is going to be biased, and they're going to every single article was out to make them look like monsters. You know what I'm saying? Like monsters, which is what I assume whoever suggested it probably was expecting, as was I. You know what I'm saying? Like, I loved Frankenstein's Army because it was horrific. I loved you hated it, but I loved the last bit of the House of a Thousand Corpses, where he's like Dr. Death, just totally weird. I love that weird shit because it's like shock to the senses, but that's not what I ended up finding. In fact, it was more interesting than it was horrifying to me. Yeah, like, it's sad shit, and I'm not,
like I guess the way my brain works, I kind of look at it through a different lens. you know.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, and honestly, there is a ton of like horrible stuff that was done on humans and everything, but the majority of those aren't famous, and they're not known for they're not called mad scientists. They're actually like illegal. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not they're not
yeah,
even scientists. It's
yeah,
like back alley shit. You know what I mean? Which
yeah,
technically wouldn't have been the topic. So
right.
anyway, those are the ones that I chose because I thought, hey, they were interesting and somewhat creepy. That honestly, the visuals of because there's photos with all this stuff. Have
I'm
fun, guys.
sure.
Yeah. Google will remember that shit. Listen to the last episode. Your fucking search history is about to get screwed.
Yeah.
Trust me. But yeah, for the most part, it was an interesting kind of research process, which I didn't think I was going to enjoy, but I did to a point. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, for to me, I'd heard of I hadn't heard of the blood transfusion one. I'd heard of the other ones that you told me about, and I hadn't heard of the fucking poison thing. But that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me even in the least. Like,
No, I mean, dude, gas chamber, like that was how I mean,
like I would assume that our country tests its poisons or whatever in some nefarious ways as well.
right.
So,
Oh yeah, there's plenty U.S. mad scientists.
oh yeah, because we took all the Germans.
We took all the Nazis and gave them jobs.
They're like, okay, what were you working on? They're like, oh shit, we can't use any of that.
Oh God.
So I mean, it is interesting, but I would imagine that a great deal of maybe some of their more elite, fucked up mad scientist shit probably hasn't been leaked out of the Soviet Union, or it's not the Soviet Union anymore. It's fucking just Russia. But there's the Russians have done some horrible shit beyond science as well. So
well, yeah, for sure. And again, there was some like when you just Google Russian science experiments or Russian mad scientists, the first guy that pops up is that it's more of like they were looking they thought the craziest mad scientists were those guys who were like the long game, who like literally were like the guy who caused famine because nobody could eat the food. They're like, oh, he's the greatest, and it's like, whoa, like, yeah, but it's really
that's a pretty fucked up shit, man.
Yeah, it is, and I didn't want to sit and talk about that for a long time, to be honest with you. like your space Nazi was whoa to me, so I was like, but
the long game mad scientists are the creepy ones, man. Like they're the scary ones. They're like, oh no, we found this way to like fuck with the genome, where everybody with this genetic trait just drops dead at 40. Like, wait, what? Like, what? Or doesn't make it past 16, or like something like those are the fucking crazy motherfuckers that scare the shit out of you. Yeah, they're like, oh no, we're gonna wipe them off the planet at a genetic level.
At a genetic level. Oh yeah, dude. Well, so a lot of that was German. Yeah. It was. I'm glad nobody said German mad scientists. I'd have been like, nope.
Or just mad scientists.
Yeah, right. Well, no, dude. I'm telling you, do not Google German science experiments. Just don't.
Just walk away.
Just none of it's good. Yeah. Like everything I've just read is done on children, but like times 100.
Yeah. Well, no, that like us doing this episode and you putting that out there means that someone's going to fucking suggest German mad scientists.
Well, look, not it.
Yeah.
I'm calling it not it.
Right. So, no, I mean that was actually enlightening. Like I found that, but I'm a history guy, like so. Right. It was interesting because I looked at it from scientific accomplishment,
right?
as
Well,
opposed to.
which is funny because that's kind of, especially after your comments, then I was like, yeah, actually, if that's the way you look at it, then this is a really interesting kind of, you know, educational fucking topic. You know what I'm saying? But they, I think the intention was to be a little bit darker and creepy and I'm sure there's some horrible stuff out there, but the stuff I found I thought was more valid, more interesting. In my mind, wasn't that crazy. It was crazy for its time.
Well, to me, like, dude,
Sure.
if you look at like how we did the H.H. Holmes episode, like, I'm not gonna inject any kind of like I'm not if I don't agree with where the story's taking me,
Right.
I'm not gonna portray it that way. Like, so when you were going through the information in this, like, it makes sense to me. That's why I said, like, so I'm not like, I'm sorry if somebody suggested this episode and they wanted that creep factor and the scary animals, and we're not going this way, we're not going that way with the storyline.
Right.
But we've had that happen on multiple occasions where it's like, oh
Like
yeah,
that, like that one time when you called Japanese society super sexist, and it was
yeah,
supposed to be about a ghost story.
yeah.
Remember that one time?
Like, remember that one time? But I mean, it's just like, I'm not gonna look. I want this to be a fun podcast for everybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's called Based on True Events. Like, I'm gonna give you my opinion, and my opinion is like this. A lot of this stuff was pushing science to go farther than where.
Well, and I could have read it, like I could have dimmed the light and like
Yeah.
put on some spooky music and read it like with a different tone and put a different emphasis on, you know, whatever that, however you say it, wrong syllable.
Emphasis.
Emphasis on the wrong syllable. Isn't that the joke?
Yeah, syllabla.
Yeah. But you know, and then technically, yeah, I get it how you can make that a scary story.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But truthfully, it was a science experiment that is hard to maybe stomach, especially if you like puppies like I do. But
Well,
it
yeah,
was,
but you're also bouncing this off of me.
Yeah.
So at some point, like, you can do all the creepy, spooky music and throw emphasis in different places and, you know, do this and do that. But like, if you're projecting the story the way that it actually goes down, then I'm sorry, man, I'm going to shit on your story. If it's like, if
I know you too
one doesn't
well.
equal two,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I know you too well, so I knew you would go, oh well, this is why they did that, and that's why with the chimpanzee, the humanzee, I was like, so why do you think they did? I knew you would already like have a process of you know, you're processing, going, oh yeah, this is my theory, I already know. So I knew I couldn't. One, I already know I can't hoke up or make an episode hokey around you because you're just gonna fucking smash it immediately.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry.
But I enjoyed this. I'm not shitting on this topic because I actually enjoyed the research. It ended up being surprisingly kind of light, if that makes sense, and I enjoyed the whole discussion. So
yeah, except for the 7 million who died from famine.
yeah, that part sucks.
We're real sorry for everybody.
Yeah,
that happened to.
Yeah, I didn't. I started reading it and I go, it's just real depressing and
no, I'm walking away.
I'm good. Yeah. So all right, well shit, man. That's it for that. Was the #1 voted episode.
Russian mad scientists. Turns out it's just Russian scientists.
Just Russian scientists who, you know, were possibly way ahead of their game and onto some really fucking good shit.
Yeah. So I don't know, man.
I still don't have any. I still don't see any two-headed soldiers running around saving fucking brain cells. But
I don't either. But I mean, fuck, you really got to look at what Stalin did about killing his own people. Like,
yeah,
I'm on to something, Stalin. Kill him. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh Jesus. All right. Cool, man. Well,
I'm good. Yeah, that was good. That was a good story. Man.
All right. No, good story, man.
Good story, dude.
All right. Good shit, man. We'll see you later.
All right.